Welcome to Living Well. We are so happy that you joined us today. We have a very important topic. We talked about the immune system last week, but we want to continue that conversation today. What we found out about the immune system last week, that it is actually the powerhouse of the body and it protects us. And so we want to learn more about the immune system today. It'll be a conversation between you and me. We're expecting Dr. Perot to join us as well, and Emlyn. And so we'll talk about the immune system. What I do want to tell you is that this program is for educational purposes only. And so the reason I say that is because I know many things that we talk about on this program, people get so excited, they want to take notes and everything, and that's so important. But what I want to tell you is that we do not assess, we do not treat, we do not diagnose on this program. If you have any medical conditions that you are concerned about, we do ask that you consult your medical doctor. And the reason we ask you to do that, because many times individuals are on different medicines or different regimes that your doctor has you on, and we do not want to conflict with that. But I do know that we want to let you know that our conversation is from the Bible. Our conversation is from research. Our conversation also includes personal experiences that we have each and every day. So as we think about our conversation today, let's think about how can we have self-care of our immune system. Many of you have heard about self-care. People are talking about self-care, of how to care for the mind, the body, and the spirit. But because the immune system is invisible to us, many times we don't think about what we can do to care for our immune system. So again, welcome. Welcome, welcome. I advise you to get a piece of paper and a pencil and be prepared to write down some questions. This is really just a conversation today. So I'm going to start the conversation off by talking about something very simple, and that is the immune system in our skin. And so many things that we put on our skin oftentimes are not affect our immune system. Welcome, Dr. Perot, and welcome, Emlyn. We're so glad that you're here. We want to start our conversation, continue our conversation from last week regarding the immune system. So welcome.
Thank you, Jennifer. Yeah, good to be here again.
Excellent. So what I've told our audience is this is really a conversation today. We're extending the conversation from last week. There's some questions that came up last week after the presentation of Dr. Perot, and we want to go ahead and open the floor and allow you and Dr. Perot, if you have some added information. If not, I have a question that I want to ask her. All right, so I'm going to ask my question. I'm not sure exactly. So the question has come up regarding vitamin D. How much vitamin D should individuals take to have a healthy immune system?
That's that directed to me. I could answer. Nobody knows for sure, but we do know that it's best to measure your vitamin D. Okay, so the range of vitamin D, if you measure it and you get a result, say from Quest or LabCorp, etc., would be between 30 and about 100. The most optimal vitamin D level that I aim for my patients to improve, to strengthen the immunity, to keep their immunity strong, is between 50 and 70. Now, so if a patient, for instance, starts off with a very low vitamin D, let's say it's 18, for instance, I would start them off on a very large dose and then go down. I may start them off on 10,000 for a few days and then go down to 5,000. I like to maintain my patients. I have found over time, this is not found in a book, okay? So it's just be clinically looking at it. I have found over time to really get up to 50 to 70, you have to do a few things. One, if you take, there are some vitamin Ds that are given once a month. Have you seen those vitamin D that are given once a month, like 50,000 once a month? Over the last few months, because we have been looking more at vitamin D levels and how it affects our immunity, and if they're even looking at COVID-19 and how many people with low vitamin D have COVID-19, they have found that monthly vitamin D does not work. What works is daily or even weekly, but daily vitamin D. You gotta have a little bit of the vitamin D regularly for it to maintain. A good so if a person comes in me and they have a lower end of vitamin D, I would do 5,000. I myself take 5,000. So I find that really to maintain that 50 to 70 range, you need for the most about 5,000 IU of D3 daily.
So thank you. So it sounds like the first thing we need to do is get our vitamin D level measured by going to the doctor. That's the only way we can do that.
Yes.
Then based on what the results are, then that's how it is determined really how much we should take into our body.
That's correct.
You mentioned that the monthly really is not as effective as if we do it daily, because again, the system is consistently getting over a period of time, a
Right.
sustained amount versus maybe peaks and valleys of it.
Yeah.
And vitamin D is very interesting. Vitamin D is a very interesting vitamin. Is that we know it, we call it vitamin, but it's not really a vitamin at all. It's a hormone, actually. If you take the structure of vitamin D and you measure it and you put it on a board and you look at the structure of progesterone and the structure of estrogen and the structure of even cortisol, it's very similar. You can't even tell much of a difference. So it's really a hormone, you know. So, and hormones behave differently. Therefore, vitamin D have receptors on literally almost every cell and even on our immune cells. And in fact, the ACE2 receptors that I talked about the last time, vitamin D really makes that really strong.
I'm really glad that you mentioned that many of the individuals who have gotten COVID, that their vitamin D levels were low.
Hello.
So, it's like I mentioned that again, because I think that when we talk about getting your vitamin D measured, it is important so that you'll know where you are.
Where you are.
And
So another thing too is that people of color, like me, for instance, we are walking sun blockers, basically. So when we go out in the sun, we need a little extra extra time in the sun to build up our vitamin D levels, for instance. So the closer the closer we are born closer to the equator, for instance, we get more vitamin D, or our skin is tanner and we get more vitamin D. We need that. So we're always in the sun, so we don't need all of that light skin, okay, because of where we were meant to be. I don't know. Okay, now, if you live above the Tropic of Cancer, which is 25 degrees latitude, you do not get any vitamin D at all in the winter, because the UVB, not UVA, UVB rays of the sun is what actually converts the precursor to vitamin D in our skin, UVB. Now, UVB is not even, you can't even get it during the winter time. And forget if you sit down in front of a mirror, a window, it cannot penetrate the glass. You have to go out in the sun to get UVB, and you can't get it in the window. So therefore, that's another reason why we got to take vitamin D3.
Sunlight and some good vitamin D. So yes, let's remember the sun, the natural vitamin D. We won't get enough, so we'll need the supplement. Thank you, Dr. Perot.
Okay.
Okay, so this is Emlyn. I know, Dr. Perot, you spoke about the innate immune system and the acquired immune system. And we were born with the innate immune system, while we, as we get older, we acquire the acquired immune system. The thing is there something a mother needs to do during pregnancy in order to develop this innate immune system for the infant? And when does the acquired immune system come into play? When does that start? And what influence the acquired immune system?
Well, there's a lot of questions you asked. First one, we're born with the innate immune system. every single thing the mother does affects it. The food she eats, the choices of meals, her positive thoughts, her negative thoughts, the place where she lives, her environment, the toxins around her, everything affects that innate immune system. And during the third trimester, in fact, I remember giving a whole lecture on this, on the microbiome. Her microbiome during the third trimester affects it, which is also affected by your food. Now, during the third trimester is when mother transmit all of that to baby, by the way. So most of it gets in during the third trimester. So everything mom does affects the innate immune system. So when the baby is born, for instance, the baby's environment, again, choices of foods, whether you let baby play on the ground, all of these things affect the innate immune system. By age 3 years, by age 3 is when the adaptive immune system begins to kick in. And in fact, by age 3, it begins to kick in, and then, but it still develops until later on. But by age 3 is when it really kicks in, really at its full force by age 3.
Okay.
So Dr.
So what can, yes. So what can influence this adaptive immune system? So now you're older, what do we need to do to get this robust adaptive immune system?
Okay, so the adaptive immune system, one of the big things, remember I told you about a few things about the vitamin D3, that affects it, okay? Stress affects the innate immune system. And of course, the foods that we eat and certain nutrients affects the immune system as well. And all of them affects the innate immune system, by the way. Every single one of them affects all the foods, your environment, the microbiome, it all affects the immune system. The one thing that, if you remember in my last lecture, I talked about interferons. Mm-hmm. And the word interferon means, just like the word sounds, interferes. So interferons would interfere with viral replication, okay? So whenever interferons are released, it's released by the innate immune system, and that's the first. The innate immune system is a very non-specific system. Whenever there's any kind of toxins or foreigner in our system, it comes out in a non-specific way. It will eat it up, kill it. It is not specific. It's just something foreign. I got to get rid of it. That's how the innate system works. But interferon is the first thing that's released. And the thing that affects interferon, the most, vitamin D does affect interferon, by the way, but actually hydrotherapy affects interferon. So hydrotherapy was a treatment modality just before penicillin. In fact, they used, I don't remember the name of the researcher, but he got a Nobel Prize. He got for the use of fever to treat disease. And then right after that, penicillin came in and all of that changed. So hydrotherapy would affect the innate immune system as well. So in review, stress reduction of foods that we eat, which will affect the microbiome, which will affect our nutrients, etc. Vitamin D, aromatherapy even affects the innate immune system. So aromatherapy by smelling herbs such as eucalyptus and other types of aromatic oils from trees can affect the innate immune system as well.
Dr. Perot, I'm glad that you mentioned stress. I honestly don't think we talk about how to manage stress enough. Every day we are encountered with a bombardment of news reports and different things. And so I know that there's things we can control and things that we cannot control. But tell me more about how stress affects the immune system.
Okay. We know that we know the hormone of stress is cortisol. By the way, stress can kill you. It can depress the immune system. It depresses it. It does not respond in the same way as if you had, a very robust immune system. But cortisol is the hormone of stress, and it's released from the adrenal glands, and that actually will reduce cell replication. It affects the communication between cells, and by say affecting the communication, it affects the interleukins. Interleukins are you'll hear things like IL-6 and IL-12 and etc. They're called interleukins, and interleukins is like the communication between white blood cells, the communication between the immune cells. And so when you have stress, it reduces that, and or sometimes it affects it in a way that actually cause a cytokine storm. For instance, if you're under chronic stress will affect the amount of neutrophils and the amount of lymphocytes. You can't fight anymore. It affects the ratios. It affects how your stem cell produces it. It shuts it down. It's complicated, but it shuts all of these. So the cells are not produced. And then when they are produced, they don't communicate well with each other. And then they communicate in a dysfunctional way, and you end up with a cytokine storm. And if you remember, I mentioned a word called inflammasomes the last time I spoke with you guys. Inflammasomes are kind of a new term, but it's like when you're under chronic stress, it readies your body almost for a cytokine storm. That's what inflammasome does. It readies your body for a cytokine storm. So these cytokines that are produced, and they literally damage your own cells. Your body gets a dysfunctional way in which it identifies what to kill. So now it's not only killing a pathogen, it's killing your own cells. Oh. That's what stress does.
Stress, so stress is damaging to our body. I mean, like
yes.
You said that it shuts it down. And then when it starts trying to function and fight for life, they're dysfunctional cells. So they don't know whether or not they should be fighting or giving in. They're just
exactly.
And so I think that, this is important because many times when we're not feeling well or we get sick, we do not equate it to stress that our body is under. We many times, we just say, oh, I got a bad cold, or I have this, or I have the flu. But many times it's because the body's been under. And I like what you said, prolonged stress really does have a negative effect on our body, and it does kill. That is a reality. It does kill people. And so I think we want to tell our audience that there's some basic things that you can do when you're stressed, realizing what you can control and not control. As believers, pray, trusting God, understand his will for your life.
Right.
Breathing, just some cleansing breaths, breathing in, breathing out 10 times, and singing. Singing helps stress. Walking helps stress. Working helps stress, especially if it's the right kind of work, like cleaning your house and you wanted to do it. All those things can really help stress. And so people are stressed because they don't have the emotional support sometimes that they need. Sometimes they're stressed because they don't have the information they need. Like I said, there's information bombardment. For the last 2 weeks, I just turned my TV off because I'm like, I don't need any more information right now. I have plenty. So I watch it once a week for that 30 minutes or an hour, and it's off. So there's sometimes we're allowing external factors, our environment, to affect us, to stress us. And we need to understand, what is the cause of my stress? Why am I feeling like I'm feeling? Why do I feel tense? Sometimes just walking out in this certainly can help you. So remember, this is important as we talk about strengthening the immune system. Strengthen the immune system and reduce your stress.
Yes. So, interesting that you say that, because if you exercise, for instance, moderate amount of exercise, it reduces stress. But you take that same exercise and you make it very strenuous exercise, your body now sees that as a stressful event, And you'll end up getting, this is documented research, randomized controlled trials have shown that took college students and they did that. They really exercised them moderately and then they exercised extensively. They're the ones who got the colds, the one who, so your body sees it as a stressful event, a good thing, sees it as a stressful event. You know?
Yeah.
So too
Yeah,
much of a good thing
yeah.
is bad. Too much of a good thing could be bad or, you know, become unhealthy.
Right.
Yeah, and that is so true. Too much of a good thing could be unhealthy. So I was, as Jennifer was talking about stress, I start thinking back on what's happening around us today. You know, we are in a pandemic, and everybody is stressed out about this pandemic, and rightfully so, because this is a very serious virus. But I was wondering, what can an individual do? Because what happened, the virus into the body and it increased, you have a high level viral load of this virus, and then that can cause you to produce all the cytokines and start the virus multiplying and affect your whole body. So what can we do to reduce this viral load? Is there something that we can, are there things that we can do to reduce the viral load if, for example, we do get COVID, or to prevent the viral load, you know, from getting COVID?
So let me just say that, let me tell you some of the research that have been done, and then we could talk a little bit about what we can do. For instance, in the influenza virus, for instance, they're all viruses, so they kind of behave the same way. They use N-acetylcysteine, large doses of it, like 600 milligrams twice a day at the very initial, and they have seen reduction in or elimination of all symptoms, you know, over time, and it's not going into pneumonias or anything like that. So N-acetylcysteine, if you notice, by the very beginning of this pandemic, we were throwing everything that we possibly could think about with N-acetylcysteine, vitamin D3, melatonin, all of these things we were throwing it at people because we didn't know what we knew in vitro. We didn't know. We just throwing things at. But let me just say, so that's one bit of research that has been done. We know vitamin D upregulates vitamin D upregulates or ACE2 receptors. The more ACE2 receptors we have, is the less viral load that we can have. It upregulates it. So usually, if I'm getting a cold and I'm getting something and I have sore throat, I would crank up my vitamin D3. I would take 10,000 IU twice a day for 2-3 days. And you can try that. It works quite well. Big dose, but not forever, just for 2 or 3 days, and you'll notice it right away. It really does work. So getting your vitamin D at a, you know, if you actually have disease, I'm assuming you're asking the question, I have the disease, I think I have it, what could I do? One, you up your vitamin D level, you up your zinc level, you take N-acetylcysteine, you up your quercetin levels, you know, and you can get some of that with natural foods. You can get it in onions and garlic and you know, and things like that. Turmeric and ginger. You can get all of those things within that. But I'm telling you, these are also some supplemental things that you can do as well. The other thing is sleep. Sleep is very important. Remember, we say sleep helps the white blood cell to communicate well and strengthens your immune system and actually renews it. So sleeping is very important. 7 to 9 hours of sleep, an average of 8 hours of sleep a day is very important as well. So sleeping is important, and that's important. The other thing that actually, if you can catch this thing very early within the first 48 hours, if you do hydrotherapy. Now, hydrotherapy is there are a lot of books that are written about it, but a very simple hydrotherapy would be, well, let me back up a little bit. Let me tell you the research. The research has shown that if you can bring your body temperature for a short period of time to 39 degrees Celsius, that's 39 degrees Celsius. You have to work out what the Fahrenheit is. I think it's 101 or 2 degrees. If you could bring your body temperature up to that, you can actually increase your interferons 10 times. So what we do hydrotherapy, and you can do it in the bathroom. You increase it, you take a shower, a very warm shower, the hottest that you can stand it. The hottest you can stand it for 3 minutes. And then you get cold for 30 seconds. And you repeat that 3 to 4 times. That increases your interference. And you want to do that in early phases of the COVID-19. So your good food, good rest, forest bathing, forest bathing, you go out in nature and take deep breaths, etc. That increases your aromatic, oils that you can smell in, infusions, and of course you supplement with your food and rest and stuff like that. And if you have a temperature that is, no, you don't want to go, some patients will get a very high temperature when they have COVID-19. For very low grade temperature, you do not want to take a Tylenol. You want your temperature, but once it goes above 1 or 2 or 3, that's when it becomes a little bit damaging for you. So you want to take something to reduce that. However you choose to take a cool bath, whatever, Tylenol, you want to reduce it some, but you don't want to eliminate all temperatures at all.
Yeah. Yeah, because the temperatures, high fever, what it does, it's a mechanism that the body creates to fight whatever virus or bacteria, whatever you have. So temperatures is not a bad thing. So 139 degrees Celsius is
39 degrees Celsius. I think it's 102.
It's equal to 102.2
Yeah.
degrees Fahrenheit.
Yes. Right. Now, if you read how they did hydrotherapy in the past, they would put the towel on the bed and then they would put these warm things on you and cover you up. You can do all of that. You need a helper to do that.
Right. Yeah.
But the showers, the hot and cold showers, works just as well. Saunas work well. In fact, if you look at some of the COVID-19 numbers in Finland and these places where they have these saunas, it's less.
Right.
Because these people do saunas all the time.
What I think I'm really hearing clearly is as soon as you just have an inkling that you're not doing well,
yes,
that you don't wait and see.
Because
you start loading your system up and building it up. But
that's correct.
Waiting and seeing, do I really have it? Do I not? If in doubt, do it.
Yes.
If in
and
doubt,
it doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt to do that. It does not hurt to do that.
Right.
It doesn't. It will not hurt you at all. I want to commend you, Dr. Perot, for talking about the forest bathing. I've told several people this week about forest bathing, about the importance of getting out in nature. And I actually, I have a lot of trees around my house, so I've gotten quite a few baths this week. But it really does. I mean, it really does jolt. I mean, it does get you feeling well. I mean, and I think what we have to think about with this COVID, many of our, we have so many subdivisions and they've cut down trees and, we've cut down the things in nature that helps to remove toxins.
That's correct.
If we don't have it in our home, our immediate area, we need to go to where it is. Go to the
wherever, to the park.
Go to the park or I like the diffusers. You could do diffusers with eucalyptus. There's many things you can do, but outdoors, fresh air really is a good cleansing detoxifier of our system.
That's correct.
To be able to, it's for free. It's free. We don't have to go.
It's free.
It's free. It's free.
Yeah. That is so true. Decreasing the viral load, once you feel the symptoms coming on, right ahead, start working on it. Because I've been reading some articles and watching some videos of doctors who have treated COVID. These doctors are not in the United States, but of other countries. And the results they are getting from positive results, that is, they're getting from early intervention with the COVID virus, with COVID, SARS virus. The Washington Post just put out a statement saying, the headline was, vaccine alone will not solve the pandemic. Vaccine alone will not solve the pandemic. And here's some things that they're looking into. So the government, this was put out by the Biden Transition COVID Advisory Board. So they are realizing that they have to do something more than just the vaccine. Colchicine. One of the things they were talking about was colchicine. Of course, these are all things that you have to get from a doctor. But they were saying, because colchicine is a medication we give for gout. This was a Canadian study that was done, and they were saying that this helped reduce inflammation in the body, because of what colchicine does, it reduces the inflammation of gout. The study showed that there were the patients who took the colchicine, 44% of them, there was a 44% reduction of death in the group, and 27% of them did not have to, were not hospitalized. So one of the big things with COVID is the hospitalization. People do not want to go in the hospital today. You do not want that. Fluvoxamine. Fluvoxamine is an anti-depressant drug, and what they were saying with that, it helps release the chemical. It helps with our immune system to release the attack on the virus. Now, there was a small study that was done in California on there were a group of people in the what is it, Golden Gate Field employees, I guess. Hundreds of them came down with the virus, and they did this experiment. 113 of them participated in it. So 65 of them took the fluvoxamine, while 48 did not. Those who took the fluvoxamine, their symptoms were mild. They got over it quickly. Those who did not, in the 48, 6 of them were hospitalized. 2 of them even ICU, had to go to ICU, and 1 death. So I said this to say that they're coming up with other stuff. Ivermectin is the next thing that I'm reading about, that they're looking at that can help with the viral load, decrease that, so that we don't get this big influx of cytokines.
Well, ivermectin, I believe, should be looked in. Of all the 3, I've heard of all of those, but I gotta say that ivermectin is the one I think should be looked in more. I think we need big studies. I know that the FDA say all kinds of stuff about ivermectin, but there are literally 30 randomized controlled trials on ivermectin at this time, which shows that it works. And actually the reason, and there's some villages in India where that's all they used, and they don't have the level of deaths nor hospitalization or even the disease as much as other places in the cities that don't have it. So ivermectin is something I think ought to be looked into more closely.
And I appreciate that the government has realized that the vaccine is not the only, not the only solution or the solution. We have to layer. We have to have layers of protection. I remember Dr. Pro saying there's layers of protection for the body. And I'm so happy that we've been talking about how to live well naturally. I'm happy that we've been talking about the foods and the vegetables and the things that we can do naturally, because as much as those drugs can be studied and they will add value and they are options as well, if we start with a strong immune system, then when you do get anything else on board, your immune system's already strong. You know what I'm saying? That it already has.
That's correct.
Strength. So I think that all of those studies are great, but I think that if we take ownership, because remember, the only way you're gonna get that stuff is if you go to the doctor and you go here and go there. I think if we take some ownership for what we can do and that we can't do, then we turn that over to the physicians and the scientists and people who are doing those studies. But it's an ownership.
Yes, that is so true. This Bible verse always comes to mind when I think about what God requires of us. He said, is in 2 Chronicles 7:14, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves, pray, and seek my face, and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and forgive their sins and heal their land. So God wants to heal our land. Also, select his message, page 249. It says, the Lord has given some simple herbs of the field that at times are beneficial. And if every family were educated in how to use these herbs in case of sickness, much suffering might be prevented and no doctor need to be called. The old-fashioned, simple herbs used intelligently will have recovered many sick who have died under drug medications. So let us take these warnings. I know last week I gave you that flu bomb. All of those, Dr. Pearl just mentioned some of them, all of those ingredients like the ginger, the turmeric, the onions, the garlic, all of those have medical properties that if we use them will, help us. And one way preventing this viral load, decreasing it, is by taking that flu bomb on a regular basis. It will surely help. So look at that recipe again that I gave last week. I encourage everyone to, to use it.
So, I love to open the floor, Emmeline and Dr. Perot. There may be some questions that we didn't cover. We have about 8 minutes left. And so I want to give the audience an opportunity to ask questions that we may not have covered. Please feel free to open your mics and we'll take your questions. Moria?
Yes, Dr. Sanku.
Yes.
I need some information here, Dr. Piro. I live in Tobago, which is in the islands. And right now, our temperatures are really up, very hot and humid. And my husband and I always has this this tug of war because he goes out in that 11 o'clock, that 12 and 1 o'clock sun, and he's walking right in the yard because we have a big yard, up, down, up, down. And to me, I think that is too much sun at that time of the day, and he will always argue and say, well, he reads from what time to what time. But I personally think that the sun right now is extremely hot in the hours that he's taking those walks. So I'm asking, what is the best time for someone of our skin color to take in that kind of sun, that to get that vitamin D?
That's a very good question. A lot of people don't know that there are answers to that question. That's a very good question. If you go out in the sun anytime during the day and you stand up and you look at your shadow and your shadow is longer than you are tall, you are not getting vitamin D. Just want to say that again. Let me say it again. This is funny. It's always funny when I say it. I always say it when I'm funny.
My husband said to say it again.
If you go out in the sun any time of the day and you look at your shadow and your shadow is longer than you are tall, you are not getting vitamin D. Vitamin D comes in the hottest part of the day. So you're right, sir. The hottest part of the day, anywhere around maybe about 10 or 11 to about 3 p.m.
About 3, I seen that. I was yes, I was telling her that all around.
By the way, you don't need a whole lot of sunlight to get your vitamin D. For you, you would probably need only half an hour of sun. And you have to expose about 15% of your body, like your face and your arms, etc., to get all the vitamin D you need. And literally, you only need it 3 times a week to get all that vitamin D.
Okay. But I was telling her that is from 11 to 3, the same thing you said she was.
Yes, that's correct. You are correct. You are correct. He has to be sure that he's not getting dehydrated, because if he's out there sweating, he has to drink water.
Yes, look, I drink a lot.
That's correct.
And sometimes you have to pour it for the water finishing too fast because I drink a
Okay.
yeah.
Great.
All right.
I give him that. I give him that.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
Any other questions that you're thinking about?
Mhm.
Any concerns? Because we know every week we're hearing of people getting COVID, testing.
Yeah,
for it.
yeah, bad aid.
Yeah, so these
Yeah.
are things that we feel are very important to talk about so that we can stay well, so that we can live well.
You can even write it in the chat. If you don't want to speak, you can write it in the chat also.
Yes, absolutely.
Mhm.
You know, Emily, I love that you gave those Bible verses because really, you know, the Bible talks about how Jesus came that we may have life and have it more abundantly. And the first part of that text talks about the thief coming to steal, kill, and destroy. And that's what's
Destroy.
happening in our nation right now. Really, he is. He's stealing away the joy, the happiness. He's, you know, causing losses within families, you know. And so because of that, a lot of people are going through stressful times. A lot of people are feeling very anxious. There's depression going on. So it's really important that we focus on that Jesus has come, that we may have life and have it more abundantly. Any other questions?
Yeah.
Open your mic if you have any questions. I don't see. Anna, did you have a question? Open your mic for me. I can't hear you. Can you open your mic? Unmute your
He's
mic.
talking, but we can't hear.
Can you unmute your mic? Can you open the mic? There you
Yeah.
go. Okay, I'm ready. Go ahead, Anna.
Okay, I'm Moya's friend. I am new to this thing. I don't even know how to operate it. Nevertheless,
You're doing good.
You're doing
You're doing
good.
well.
I was like a couple of weeks ago, I was tested positive for COVID and for COVID-19, and I didn't have any symptom, nothing whatsoever, not even a headache or eye, nothing. And you know, I was very thankful for God for that. So is what I do take the vitamin D tablets and stuff like that. What do you think that will, how should I put this, contribute for me not having it per se?
Okay, so you have two advantages. Let me just tell you what I think is happening here. I have seen this quite commonly, where people would be in the same house, or you know, maybe the same room, or working in the same area. I hope Anna is hearing.
Oh yeah, I'm hearing you.
Okay, and one would have a mild disease and other wouldn't. What constitutes a mild or severe disease are several things. Several things. And one of them I'm going to tell you last, which is quite fascinating to me. But the first is viral load. Let me just say it again, viral load. In other words, if you're in a situation where somebody coughs in your face and they have COVID-19, and you get a whole bunch of COVID virus, you'll get more disease than if you were wearing a mask, for instance, and somebody may be passing by you and you get a little bit of virus. Now your immune system can tackle and handle that little bit of virus as opposed to somebody who got a huge viral load. That's one thing. The second is that you're female. I don't know if you were here the last time, but
no, first time coming on.
Females don't do better with COVID-19 than males. They do much better, and the reason is we have more receptors. There's a receptor called the ACE2 receptors, like ACE2 receptor. And ACE2 receptor is what the virus binds to. Now, you've got to understand what the ACE receptor do. The work of the ACE receptor is actually to produce pro-oxidative. It reduces oxidative stress. In other words, it removes toxins from our body. To put it in a very simple way, so the ACE2 receptors remove toxins from our body. It removes viruses. It removes stuff. But this virus is smart, so it attacks the very thing that can remove it. And you know how it downregulates it? It binds to it, pulls it into the cells, so that we have less and less of these ACE2 receptors affecting us. women have more ACE2 receptors than men. And the reason why women have more is because we have our chromosomes are different. We are 2XX and male is XY. You know, the Y chromosome is just a piece of the X missing, really. You know, and that looks like a Y. So the expression of the ACE2, I'm going to say something complicated here. So I'm going to try to see if I can bring it down to a level that everybody can understand. The expression, or what creates the ACE2 receptors, the gene set that creates the ACE2 receptors is found on the X chromosomes. And we have 2 of them, and males have 1. See what I'm saying? So we have more expression of the extra chromosome. Given that, we're out in circulation, one of our X chromosomes is deactivated, so we can equal a little bit to men, but the area in which it's deactivated is the area in which it's deactivated is not the same area where the ACE2 chromosomes are. ACE2 genes are expressed. So it ends up where women will end up having more ACE2 receptors than men. So therefore, that's another reason why your immune system you have more ACE2 receptors. The viral load makes a difference as well. The third is, this is actually a new thing. The third is there where we have found that the coronavirus is this is a novel virus, meaning it's new to us. We've never had a coronavirus ever in the past, you know, like this one. This is called SARS-CoV-2, okay? So, but the coronavirus is a very large class of viruses that causes the common cold, okay? So sometimes when we get a cold, a common cold, it's caused by a coronavirus, not the SARS-CoV-2, but a coronavirus. And we're thinking that some of these spike proteins are cross-reactive, so there about 40% of people would have a little bit of adaptive immunity to these colds from coronavirus, and hence their system is already geared to attack a coronavirus, and therefore that's why you didn't get it. So there are 3 good reasons why you didn't get it. You may have had some adaptive immunity already to it. Your body already was fighting already. So it got into your system, but it was ready to fight because it already had known this virus already.
And
that's great.
And that's what we're talking about. How do you strengthen and improve your immune system so that it can fight? So it can have a good fight and it can win the fight, and that we don't have those outcomes that some people are experiencing as a result of it. We're actually right at
There's another question in the chat. Why aren't there more deaths in the Caribbean?
I have my reasons. I say no vitamin D.
Yeah,
That's
that
what
is
I
so
say.
true. We, because we are more outside,
That's
here
correct.
in the United States, you don't really go outside because you leave your house, you go into your car, sometimes you don't have to go outside your car is right in the garage, you hop in the car and you're gone from, once you get out your car, maybe you have a garage, you walk into work, we hardly go outside. But back in the Caribbean, most people don't have the luxury of cars. They walk, if they have to go somewhere, they do a lot of walking, and they're out in the sun more. They do gardening. They have more outdoor activities compared to someone, in the United States. So that could be, and I know vitamin D is a key factor because whenever a patient comes into the hospital with COVID, we always give them vitamin D. That's the first thing we give them, vitamin D.
Yes.
So everybody knows now that vitamin D, we need it to protect and to build our immune system.
Wow. So what a robust conversation. Are there any more questions in the chat that we need to answer before we wrap up? We want to make sure that we address them. We know this is a very, very important topic. It is our goal. We're small, but our goal is to impact the world. We want to change the world. We want to change our families. We want to change our communities. This is a serious conversation. So what you learned here today, we would encourage you to share with your family. I don't know how many people I told about that forest bath, but every time I had a chance, I told them it was new information. And what was exciting to me is because I cut my own yard, right? I have a riding lawnmower, right? So I have all these trees and I'm just riding my lawnmower this week. I'm getting my forest bath, you know. But I think that we have to know why we do what we do. Know why you're in the sun, know why you're doing those things, and not just say, I take vitamin D, but know how it affects the cell, knowing the timing of it, knowing the importance of doing it daily. We want us to be able to share that information with others so that they will embrace it. Just the fact that Emily says, when you come in the hospital, we load you with vitamin D. So why do we need to wait till we get to the hospital? Let's just take it before so we don't have to,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
You see what I'm saying? I mean, I know when I used to work in the hospital, if someone got septic, they load them with fluids. Let's drink our fluids. Let's make sure we're well hydrated. That's really, those are things that we can do that can keep us out of the hospital. The hospital, as Emily said, is not the place you want to be going right now, because you're going into an environment where there's other conditions that are going on. You don't want to put yourself at risk. So thank you all for listening today. We have a really great topic next week. It is going to be on grief. We know that individuals have lost loved ones over the last month, years. I mean, I lost my parents a year ago and it's still grief. And so we want to talk about that. And so we're going to have an expert that's going to actually going to chime in from California, Dr. Nikki, and she's going to talk about grief next week. And so she will share her personal testimony of a loss that she had in her family and how she worked through that grief. But she's a mental health counselor and she's going to share that. And I think you want to hear that, because remember, we said that when you're under stress, the body weakens. And so many of us are stressed because we're still grieving. So we want to figure out how to work through that so that we can actually let our bodies be in the best health possible. Thank you all for joining in. We're going to pause and just ask if there's any prayer request. Any prayer requests. We know that this is a journey and all of our journeys are different, but we know that we need God's help to help us through this journey. So,
yeah.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, I want prayer for my granddaughter, continued progress, because she's actually, I talked to you once before about her depression. She's on a different path, and I appreciate that, and I know it has to be prayer that has done it.
Yes.
So I want to continue prayer for her, and for her to continue to seek God.
Amen. Amen. We'll pray for her. Her name is, well, because we're actually recording. So
her name is Destiny.
we will do that. Absolutely. Absolutely.